Assalamualaikum, hi all, it is Dr. Muhammad Usman and welcome back to another video on Bloom's Taxonomy of Learning. Today I am going to discuss about dimensions mapping other than our last video which was about on Bloom's Taxonomy fundamentals and overview. First of all, before I start this video, I am again very thankful, I'm much thankful for all of you for all the feedback, all the comments and all the sharing of my video onto different platforms. I have been contacted by different organizations also to share my video and feature on their platform itself. So I hope so that my video has given you the fundamental knowledge, and it will give you more fundamental knowledge in this series, because I will move on to different series one by one on to Bloom's taxonomy when I move forward into this knowledge itself. So before I start, I brought another proverb like a good teacher makes a student think even when students don't want to. So basically, we as a teacher have to learn also, we as a teacher has to improve also. So it's always a continuous learning. So we cannot say that we have stopped up to some place. So same thing, a teacher has to create its classroom environment in such a way that the student has to think. And even if we don't want to think, so we must be thinking, we will give them some questions. So it's not like that. It's always different, and there is another pyramid of learning on this one. We will go later on into some other time and some other videos itself. So before I start, let's go with the recap. So last time we were discussing about 3 different types of Bloom's taxonomy, and I showed you different questions from each level of the Bloom's taxonomy itself, and I gave you an overview that what can be done and how our question should be made on understanding level itself. So this was what we did last time, and there were 3 Bloom's taxonomy. One was the original, second was the revised one, and the third was the digital Bloom's taxonomy. So now at this moment I will not go into the digital Bloom's taxonomy itself, but it is very important because we are in a 21st century itself, and we are not following that. We are just staying back about 20 years ago on a Bloom's taxonomy which was made. But the world has changed, so that I will go on later on in another video to talk about it, how we can move from this 2001 Bloom's taxonomy now to the actual Bloom's taxonomy that should be there, and we should adopt it. So basically today we are going to talk about 2 Bloom's taxonomies, and out of that we will mainly talk about 2001 Bloom's taxonomy because it is mostly in place at many different organizations itself, and many educational institutes are following it all of the time. So before I start, so what do you do for making up your program learning objectives? Or what do you do for making your classroom learning objective onto the basis of Bloom's taxonomy? So you must be thinking that I have different levels of Bloom's taxonomy here. And what I will do, I will take one keyword from here, one word from here of remember level, one from understand, one from apply or analyze, evaluate or create, and I will make up okay, create something. I will make up okay, evaluate something. But the fact is that when you are doing that, you are only taking the part of 1956 Bloom's taxonomy. So the problem, what is the problem here that we need to talk about? Do you think so that Bloom's taxonomy is only one part of it? You must be thinking, oh, there might be some domains of Bloom's taxonomy, there might be something else, and I know that, but are you doing that in actual implementation? Why you are doing that? Well, actually with my experience, I haven't seen into many different places till now. Many of us as instructors don't know even about it, that how we are going to create up some learning outcomes, create up some objectives that should be achievable in our classes itself. So let me tell you, when you are going to take up only the keywords and you are going to make up some questions, or you are going to make up some class learning outcomes, or you are going to make your program learning outcomes based on only these keywords from each level, you are on 1956 Bloom's taxonomy, and 1956 Bloom's taxonomy is not what we are following at this moment at most of the places. It should be 2001 Bloom's taxonomy. So the difference over here is that the 2001 Bloom's taxonomy has 2 dimensions. One is the cognitive processes, and second is the knowledge dimensions. So now you see there is a difference. So most of the time what's happening into the classroom environment, into the organization, into educational institute itself, they just go over here onto just one level of Bloom's taxonomy itself, And what they are doing, that taking up the keywords, and this is the pyramid that they know. And whenever they are going to search for the keyword, they will write that Bloom's taxonomy keywords, and they will pick up from all different level, and they will say that, okay, this remember, understand and apply is lower level thinking, analyze, evaluate and create is the higher level thinking. But that is not right itself, because as I have seen before and I have talked about it also, even a student into a nursery level or a primary level can create up something. Now you must be thinking how he can create something. So like you must have seen that your kids, when they are studying into the class itself, first they ask them about some remembering thing. Into the same class you will see them, they will ask them for their understanding of a certain scenario. They will ask them, okay, apply something into a certain scenario itself. And you must have seen that like some of the kids, like my own kids, they have been asked to create up a cap for the bunny bear or the big bear itself. Similarly, they are asked like, can you create up a story or a summary of a story? So how they are going to do up onto this level itself? Are we saying that analyze, evaluate and create should be on master level or doctor level itself? Or like apply, understand should be on remember level itself? No, that's not the right way. We can actually have this whole pyramid implemented into even a shorter nursery or a KG level itself, even to a kid which is on 3 years old. So at this moment, when we are thinking about only the Bloom's taxonomy, we should not consider that Bloom's taxonomy is just for a certain level. It's just what is our educational dilemma is at this moment, that we take some levels and we forget about other level itself. So this is only one side of it. So that I wanted to brought it up, so to make sure that we are now thinking into another perspective itself, to make use of Bloom's taxonomy as a whole, as a standard, because Bloom's taxonomy itself is not a standard itself. Okay. So I'm giving you the thoughts and leaving some of the thoughts for you to think also about this. Okay. So let's move forward with the second one, the knowledge dimension itself. Now Bloom's taxonomy has two sides. You got up with the cognitive dimension, but most of the time what I have seen that knowledge dimension is totally missed out. When we are thinking about creating our PLOs, program learning objectives, when we are thinking about our classroom learning objectives, you will not find knowledge dimension there at all. We map our Bloom's taxonomy keyword with PLOs, with your CLOs, with outcomes. We try to map our question with CLOs, PLOs, and all of it. And we also try to map it with different standards, like European quality framework, like national quality frameworks, like particularly QF Emirates. That's pretty common into the UAE itself. We try to map it, but have you thought about like what kind of knowledge you want to deliver into the class itself? Have you thought about that? What kind of PLO is going to be on a certain level? So knowledge dimension is the dimension of the Bloom's taxonomy that's going to focus on what you want to achieve. What is your objective? So it's not only about the keyword, it's also about your objective, what you want to achieve. And that objective will create or will generate up your rigor in your assessment. And one of the important problems that I have seen is that this assessment is not in depth. How this assessment is going into in depth itself? Because that assessment is not following up the basic criteria. Because we are taking the 1956 Bloom's taxonomy and we are taking the keywords and we are forgetting about the 2001 Bloom's taxonomy, that it has different dimensions and it has also different domains. That is another perspective that we need to follow also when we are talking about Bloom's taxonomy itself. So now in this video, let's talk about the knowledge dimensions. So we have 4 knowledge dimensions for our Bloom's taxonomy, which is 2001, which is followed everywhere at this moment, and all organizations and universities are basically like moving toward this one. But most of the well-developed countries, they have moved up to digital Bloom's taxonomy. So they have left the 2001 taxonomy before, and they have mixed up different standards to do that. So first dimension of your Bloom's taxonomy is the factual knowledge. So in factual knowledge, we are going to ask about the student, that how much they know about a field or a discipline or the context, like what they want to do and what they want to do to solve up the problems. and to complete up different tasks. So this is very basic element which is onto the factual knowledge, which we call it as the first dimension of the Bloom taxonomy. Then the second one is the conceptual knowledge itself. So now you are moving up from factual knowledge to the conceptual knowledge. So this is like about now you are going to ask some question for the students among the basic knowledge itself, but it will be a little bit wider, that it will make them think more. This is going to test their concepts. So first factual, second is your conceptual knowledge, testing their concepts itself. So you are moving a little bit more forward into the depth onto the knowledge itself, what you want to achieve from them. Then the third of this one is procedural knowledge. So basically this is now you are going to ask them what they know about a certain thing itself, how they can do certain thing, what is the criteria for the skills, sometime what is the criteria for the algorithms or the methods, and what is the method they can use up to do a certain thing. They can even have this method to create up something. So similarly, the last of this dimension is like metacognitive knowledge. So this is the highest into the knowledge dimension itself. So it's about strategies, it's about different kind of effectiveness, and usually we call it that self-development, we call it self-knowledge, we call it autonomy, we call it responsibility. So this is the last level on your knowledge dimension itself. So now if I put them into a perspective, into a pyramid, so you will see that the factual knowledge is on to the lower level of Bloom taxonomy itself, and then there is conceptual knowledge, and then there is procedural knowledge, and then there is metacognitive knowledge itself. So when we are talking about the knowledge pyramid, we need to cover up this knowledge pyramid in a whole class, or like if even you are on a class 1 level or you are on to a doctoral level. So you can test up this knowledge very easily following up the knowledge pyramid itself. So basically the point over here is that it's not about using the keywords, it's about what is your objective for a certain program, for certain class, for certain assessment, what you want to achieve at the end. So basically some of you might be thinking that okay, we can jump up to metacognitive knowledge all of a sudden and we will just follow that because we want our student to just think about strategic knowledge, or we want just them to develop up a self knowledge itself. But let me tell you, it's not like that when we are thinking about this knowledge. So basically if you think, so this is your new taxonomy over here and this is your old taxonomy over here. So basically what's happening in this scenario is that the knowledge dimension, if you see, the creating, evaluating and analyzing is the metacognitive knowledge, and the applying, understanding and remembering, these three are divided into factual, conceptual and procedural. So if you will jump directly to metacognitive knowledge itself, then it means that students are not going to follow the procedure. Students will not have concepts also. Students will not have the facts also. So how they can directly jump up to the metacognitive knowledge itself? So just think about it. Does it mean that in a certain scenario we need to start from the very basics of the remembering, and then we have to start the cognitive process up to the creation, and then we are going to test up the knowledge dimension itself? So how we are going to do? Or like if you see over here, if you are following the new Bloom's taxonomy 2001 dimension, are you just generating their metacognitive knowledge? That's also not right, because without learning of the concepts, without learning of the method to create something, how they can become a self-development, how they will generate up the things from themselves? Of course that at one stage of their life they might be experienced to just do the creation. Okay, but according to knowledge dimension, analyzing, evaluating and creating, all three are the metacognitive, and you cannot achieve the knowledge dimension of the metacognitive unless you go with the below dimension itself. So we have to consider that fact when we are taking up the keywords from different cognitive process side, and then we have to go on to the knowledge side also. So it's very important. So this knowledge dimension tells us that we are missing something that's not there, and we have to make sure that we use that knowledge dimension itself in our different objectives of the class. And one thing that I want to clear over here, that I'm saying again and again objective. I'm not saying about directly an outcome, or I'm not saying talking about the question itself, because that comes on a very later stage. That comes on a very later stage, because first we have to learn about that, how we can create that mapping that will map our cognitive process with the knowledge dimension for our each of the outcomes or our each of the objectives. So we have to first think about it. Then we can move forward by doing up the things that are particularly required to reach up onto a certain level, like according to any different standard. So first thing is that on which Bloom's taxonomy we are, either old or either new. If we are following new, then we have to follow cognitive process, plus we have to follow the knowledge dimension itself. I will try my best in this video to give you an overview of like how we can implement this knowledge dimension itself. So let's move further. So I am giving you now another perspective. So on one side, the higher level of learning is to the right. This is cognitive process dimension that we are just following up at this moment, this part only. But what type of knowledge we are going to do? We are not following at all at this moment. We are not following about the factual knowledge or the conceptual knowledge or about the procedure knowledge and then metacognitive knowledge. So this tells you another dimension of what we need to do also, how it moves from low to up. Like if you see this pyramid again, so we are moving from downward to upward, and similarly the knowledge pyramid also increases and also the higher level of thinking increases too. So another perspective of this one to make you more clear. So we have factual, conceptual, procedure and metacognitive knowledge. So I have picked up some different keywords, so you can see that it has list for remembering. So factual, remember, can you list some items? Factual, understanding. Factual, apply. Factual, analyze. Factual, evaluate. Factual, create. So now at one moment you are on to a lower level of knowledge dimension itself, but you are increasing the cognitive process dimension again and again. So like I said, we can have the factual knowledge, the very first onto the knowledge dimension, and we can go into the higher level up to the Bloom's taxonomy itself. So you have to move from top to bottom on knowledge dimension, and you have to move from left to right onto the cognitive process dimension also. Similarly, conceptual plus remembering. Conceptual can be used with understanding. Conceptual can be used by applying. Conceptual can be used in analyze and evaluate and create. Similarly, other two also. So now you see that the perspective becomes different. So you must be thinking that I'm just using this cognitive process at this moment only, the cognitive dimension, and I'm just saying that okay, let's pick up from create, and I will use combine something. Okay, but combine or onto the factual level side, it might be you are on to the starting point of the factual knowledge itself. So what is your objective? What is your objective that you want to achieve? That's very, very important, and that is being told us by the knowledge dimension itself. So we have to be very sure that we have something that tells us that how we are falling from course number 1 to our end of the course. And let me tell you, you don't have to jump into the first course taking the students from factual knowledge to metacognitive knowledge. It's not possible at all. It's not possible at all that one course will cover analyze, evaluate and create, or one course will cover all of these and all of the factual, conceptual, procedural and metacognitive. That's the wrong approach. So like if your first subject most of the time in our universities is like research methods most of the time at the master's level. So what you need to do and understand is that we can start from the factual knowledge or the conceptual knowledge, because we cannot create their metacognitive ability into the first course. And while they move from first course to the second course to the third course to the fourth course and the fifth course and until to the last, we can move from the knowledge dimension from this side and moving from top to bottom, and the other side moving from left to right. So this will create their ability to do up the things. So ultimately you can say that you are testing up onto the factual level itself. for a certain course, and then you are testing onto the conceptual level, then you are moving toward the procedural, that are the methods, and then you are moving toward the metacognitive. So metacognitive will be your last courses, regardless of the type of the course. It can be that. So we are not just talking about just like the first course will have like a certain number of questions and it should have the same thing, and the CLOs should be including analyze, evaluate and create verbs only, or my program learning objective should have like only like analyze, evaluate and create, and it's progressive. No, it's not. We are on to the wrong side at this moment, that we need to update it up for using the knowledge dimension and the cognitive process dimension itself. But if you are using it like this, moving from another like Bloom's taxonomy objective, like moving from the knowledge dimension and moving toward from combining them from the cognitive process dimension and to like actualize. So I just gave you another perspective of the keywords itself, like how it is moving it up. So you are on to the lower, then increasing. So actually actualize, if you see the word, is the last level when you talk about of the cognitive plus the knowledge dimension itself. So we have to start from the lower and increasing into a progressive way to the end. But I will say again, it depends on our objective. What is our objective? What we want to achieve? Either we want the student to all of a sudden to jump up onto the create level, or we should like just only test their factual knowledge or the conceptual knowledge at a certain stage, and then we move with the procedural knowledge itself and then metacognitive knowledge. So this is one of the problems. This is one of the problems because when we miss up the knowledge dimension, we are not able to create up the student knowledge itself. We are just pushing up onto the cognitive process, but we are forgetting about the knowledge dimension. Now another perspective in front of you. So now like this is in form of steps. Okay, this is in form of steps. So you see that you cannot jump directly to metacognitive knowledge unless you will start from the factual knowledge, and you will start from the factual knowledge. So you will start first step, second step, third step and fourth step. And when you will start with that step, then you cannot directly jump up to metacognitive next step. Then you see the second step from this one is that either I can go on to the recognize, or either will go on to the understanding level. So from one side I will go up to the create. I can take one step at one time, or I can take one step at one time onto the knowledge dimension. So like you cannot jump from here to here. You see the difference? This is to tell you, you cannot jump from here to here to this one and then to all of a sudden this one and this one, which is the last level onto the creation one, and to the highest onto the metacognitive knowledge. So like it's like a huge difference. So that's why I brought up into a stacked form, so that it tells you that we have to take mini steps to reach up onto a certain level. You cannot just say that okay, I am going to test the factual knowledge, and remember onto the factual knowledge is very low. No, it's not like that. If you are onto the remember level, still you can start from the list, recognize, recall, and you can reach up the metacognitive. So you can create the ability of the student of self-development even on to the first cognitive level of the Bloom one. And if you see the word over here is identify. Okay, and similarly this is also based on strategies on retaining the information. Okay, so these are different concepts. So you can still create up the strategy, and whenever we are thinking about the strategy on, I go back on this one, it is on this level. So you must be thinking how I am generating up a student knowledge onto a higher level, but I am still on to the first level of Bloom's taxonomy itself. So this is what the knowledge level is. This is how you can create up the depth of the knowledge step by step. And it's also linked with some other concept of learning pyramids also. So that's another perspective. But to give you an idea, so step by step we have to move up. Step by step we have to take tiny steps to move our students onto the top where we want to reach. We cannot just tell them into all of a sudden in one time create something. We can't do that, because how a student can jump from here to here all of a sudden, which is the highest level onto the knowledge dimension of create one, and which is also on to the metacognitive knowledge itself. So on to the implementation side, after the theory and all of these things, so like a student, let's implement now. Let me ask you a question at this moment. Do you have any metrics like this in your program, in your institution, or in your department, in your course, in your assessment? If the answer is yes, then how you are doing this? Are you mapping up your knowledge dimension with the cognitive process? If you are not doing that, believe me, you are not on to the 2001 Bloom's taxonomy, the revised Bloom's taxonomy itself. If you are only going to take up the cognitive processes and you are forgetting the knowledge dimension. Even for a certain program, even for a certain course, you need to have this matrix. So now you must be thinking how we can implement that. So I will give you another hint. So let's call it on to different level. This is A1, A2, A3, A4, A5 and A6. So factual knowledge, as we know, that will increase from left to right, and we want to achieve A6 in a certain course, certain program, and similarly we can achieve the D6. D6 in this case is the highest, A1 is the lowest one. So you see the difference. So you have to select the mapping. So what in a certain level I want to achieve? What is your objective? Like I said before, what is your objective to achieve? Without an objective, without a set goal, you cannot achieve anything out of your students. Because if you will jump up from one place to another place, like I said before, taking A1, moving to A2, A3, and for suppose that we think that, okay, now students have in a certain course A3 already done. So the next course will be B3 and it will have B4, P5 or B6. Or students have learned to create up factual knowledge, students have learned to analyze the factual knowledge, students have learned to create, learn to evaluate factual knowledge, then they can move up onto the conceptual knowledge. So you see, like even on to the first dimension, you have to ensure that if I'm going to pick A4, for suppose many of us follow that analyze, evaluate and create should be at the master's level and we should move high to high. So are we taking the understanding from our students that they have developed up into even the first course or the basic course, the factual knowledge on A4 level itself? Have they done it? No, they can't. They can't, because they haven't done the A2, A1, A2 and A3. So if they have developed the A1, A2 and A3 or B1, B2 and B3, like you are now moving on to from top to bottom also. So you are now telling that this guy has a factual knowledge, this guy has also conceptual knowledge, this student has also procedure knowledge, and this student has also metacognitive knowledge already developed. And I can test all of these in one program, and I can test all of these even in one assessment. So how we are going to do that? So basically there are some things that we need to understand. We have to be progressive and we have to take both of them if you want to generate some good level of understanding, if you want to generate according to some high standards, some different things, some different questions or some different class learning outcomes or your program learning outcomes, then you have to change the method by taking up this matrix itself. So it might be you must be thinking that, oh, I have to revise my everything again because now the concept is different. So I was on 1956 Bloom's taxonomy, I moved to 2001, but I forget one dimension, and like this matrix is not there with me. So how I am going to map it with my each of the course? How I am going to map it from my each of the program learning outcomes? So let me give you another idea and hint for this one. So I put it another dimension itself to be more clear. So like we said before is that factual is about basic elements, conceptual is about interrelationships, procedure is about how you do something, the methods, the skills. So now the skill development, it's also one of the requirement at major standards. Like you start with knowledge, you start with skills, then you move toward autonomy, responsibility, self-development. So how I can link with them? This is the way we can do that, because we can move from one step to each step, and we can do that. So I put A1, B1, C1, D1 to give you another perspective that we can go with remember plus factual, we can go with remember plus conceptual, we can go with remember per procedure, and we can go with remember with metacognitive. So basically onto the knowledge dimension side, you are increasing one by one the depth of the knowledge itself. So what can be my program learning outcomes? What can be my class learning outcomes? What can be my learning outcomes for a specific lecture? What can be my assessment learning outcomes or my questions itself? So it leads all the way forward, and I will go with this one into later stage, that how you can create up those questions which are starting from the basic point of the cognitive dimension itself, and it's also increasing onto the knowledge dimension to test up the thing even onto the lower level. So if you see that I'm talking just about remember, but in remember also I can reach up in-depth knowledge onto the metacognitive, and I can generate their ability of self-development. I can generate their ability of responsibility, autonomy, and that's what we need to generate at the higher levels also. So I'm still on level 1 of Bloom's, but I generated up the thing into more in-depth detail. Okay, so another one I have brought up for the second phase of it. So A4, B4, C4. So you see that analyze plus factual, analyze plus conceptual, analyze plus procedure, analyze plus metacognitive. And I have also put up some meanings like to show you that remember is about retrieving relevant knowledge for long-term memory. Understanding, constructing meaning from instructional messages, including oral, written, and graphic communication. So if you are going to take up an assessment which is based on to procedure, which is based on to the student understanding, so you are still on C2. Similarly, its understanding also means construct. And construct, if you will see into the Bloom's taxonomy keyword verb, it is about level 6. So I will say that just don't go about only the keywords over there. We have to generate our knowledge based on what is our objective, and then we can do the same thing. Similarly, if you apply, talking about the cognitive process dimension apply, it's about carrying out or use a procedure in a given situation. So in a given situation, so basically now you see that student is going to apply as a factual, or student will solve some problem in it. So if you ask the student solve a certain problem using something, so you're still on apply and factual knowledge on first dimension. And if you want him to compare, find some different relationship, it is apply plus conceptual. If you want to ask him that what is the process that you undertook to devise some methodology or a process, then you are on C3. And if you ask him about his own creation of the knowledge, then you are going for apply plus metacognitive, but you are on to an in-depth dimension itself. So it's not only about that only remember is the low level, it's not about that more. Okay, because the Bloom's taxonomy 2001 is not about that. And if you are going to follow up the latest one, we are not on to up to that level itself. So this thing also changed up when we went into the digital Bloom's taxonomy later on, that I will show you later. Similarly in this one, so in like analysis, carry out or use a procedure in a given situation. So now you see that carry out or use a procedure in a given situation, apply and analysis, very minor difference. Okay, evaluate is about make judgments based on criteria and standards. So now you are talking about criteria and standards, you are talking about making judgments. And if you are going to talk about the opinion and judgments, then you can still reach up to the higher level. But do you want the student not to start from the factual knowledge or the conceptual B5, C5 or the D5 directly? So like I showed you before, it's about steps. And then creation is about reorganization into a new pattern or structure. One of the issues that I have seen is that we are using, or I will say that misusing the create level, the level 6, because we pick up many keywords from there and we say that, okay, formulate something. But formulate what thing? Is it factual? Is it conceptual? Is it procedure? Or is it metacognitive? If you say that you want to go with high and high on that one, the very high level, like I showed you previously in these steps, So are you going to ask the students to create something that's very innovative from his own experience, from his own work? Then you cannot tell him to do the things which are based on the analysis itself. Then you cannot tell him to start with the higher level from the starting point, because onto the different levels in this step also you will see that how things are being done. And I already went into discussion of this one, that these things are different. You cannot take the steps if you will not take the first step, so you cannot reach up to here. So we have to design our courses in such a way that we can reach up to this level step by step, progressive. Do not jump into the very first course by taking the step from here to here. At the end, student is not going to develop up the thinking or the concept which we want them to do. It's just passing the knowledge rather than creating the factual knowledge or the conceptual knowledge or the procedural knowledge or the metacognitive knowledge itself. Now I have a key also for this one, that's over here. Now you see, so if you see, I have picked up identify strategies for retaining information: list, recognize, recall, identify, predict. Now you must be thinking many of these one are like classify sometime and summarize sometime. Oh, these are the higher levels. How I can use over here? Because according to Bloom's, we should only pick up the keywords from the higher level and we cannot use the keywords onto the lower level itself. Similarly, see, apply, use metacognitive techniques. Similarly, some other example, deconstruct one biases, reflect, and the last is creating a learning portfolio. So it's creation, it's your own from experience. You cannot depend on into something that's not novel. So are we just using the keyword, or we are taking the keyword and we're not asking the right thing? So we have to really think about these things. And you might see that many of the level 6 or level 5 are also on lower levels. So how we are doing this thing? So this is the way Bloom's taxonomy latest dimension is about. So let me recall again, it's about what is your objective, and even on to your that objective, it depends on you that how you can even go into in-depth onto even the one level of the Bloom's itself, because you can make them do up the thing, starting from the factual, conceptual, procedure, and reaching up to the metacognitive. So these are some of the points that I wanted to bring it out onto this lecture itself, onto this topic itself, because now this is the part that I've seen missing at most of the things, most of the time. So what we need to do now after this? So I will give you your turn thing. You can share with me the results if you want through my LinkedIn, because I will share this video over there. So first of all, number one thing that we need to do after deciding that we are with 2001 Bloom's taxonomy or we want to retain with 1956. 1956 is obsolete. We are going with 2001. If we are going with 2001, first of all, what is your current institutional level objective or outcomes? Now you must be thinking, it's my mission and vision. No, it's not your mission and vision. What is your institutional level objective? On to the bigger picture, the bigger umbrella. What you want to achieve as an institution? Are you on to this level? If I go back, what as an institution you want to do? So that's very important. So you need some objectives over there, your objectives on institution level first. If you don't have that, then you must create them, because if an organization is without the objective, they are not going to achieve anything, and that objective has to link back if you are going to use the Bloom's taxonomy itself, because this Bloom's taxonomy will go further with many different standards into the future, and I will also try to go with them into the future one by one. Then the second thing, if you have a department, and most of the time we have departments at many different places, if you don't have, then you can go with the next step onto the program level. But if you have the department level objectives, then what you want to achieve? And let me tell you, institutional level will be the broader, second will be a department, and this department level objective will be mapped up with your institutional level objective, and you have to classify them using the knowledge and cognitive dimension. So let's suppose that for institution level you picked up A1, B2, C3 and D4. Now how you will map up your departmental objective with A1, B2, C3 and D4? So what you want to do inside that? So you have to create another matrix, because your department objective is linked up with your current institutional objective. So like in an institution you can have a business department, you can have a computer science department, you can have a artificial intelligence department. So every different department has a different objective. So you cannot say that these are all different programs that are like even into the same domain or into the same department. Even these programs cannot share the same level of knowledge dimension or the Bloom's taxonomy itself. So that's why onto the third I put it up like your program level objective. So now this will be under the third umbrella. Onto this level you have to identify that what is your certain program. Let me tell you, even if you have all 4 programs in business, like one is in accounting, one is in finance, one is in like management, one is in like something else like in marketing, but all of them cannot share same program level objective and also cannot share the same knowledge dimension itself and cannot have the same depth onto the same level. So your program level objective has to map with your certain department and then your institutional level, so it will go back up again. So you're moving from top to bottom and then from bottom to top again, and then into this matrix. Now what you want that program to achieve, because this will tell you why we need to do that. This will tell you that what is my program learning outcomes after this, how you are going to make them. Because currently what we do, pick up from create, evaluate, analyze, just pick up the keywords and that's it. And what, but picking up from these one, is it A4, B4, C4 or D4, or is it like C5, B5, A5 or D5? So what I want to do, so now the perspective, if you want to follow the Bloom's taxonomy actually in like into a proper sense, it has to be different. Then inside that now you have course learning objective. So your class learning objective, okay, your course learning objectives will be further linked with them. So course learning objective is basically you already say that okay, these are sometimes also called CLOs. And it's pretty common, and the buzzword is always outside what you want to achieve out of a course and what this course is about. Are you using the right keywords? Yes, we can use the right keywords, but what if in this course I want to achieve? From where I want to start? So if I picked up on program level objective only A4, A5 and A6, and if you see the previous example which I went through over here with you, so I can even go with onto the remember level even for recognize. Or I can identify over here remember plus metacognitive. So into a certain course what I want to do, and that's very important, because when we are talking about the first foundational course, we cannot jump all of a sudden to the metacognitive. Or you, like a very simple example, how a child walks. When a baby is born, he cannot even sleep on his back. We have to teach him how to do it. Then the second step is that we tell him, okay, now you can also sleep on your sides. The second step is that now, okay, you can sit up a little, step by step with the age, 6 months, 9 months, and about 9 to 10 months, we try to hold his hand and tell him to walk. And he takes many steps. And then after that, when he becomes like about 1.2 months, 1 month, 1 year, 2 months, 1 year, 13 months, he takes the steps fast. 1 year, 5 months, he starts running. And then we also teach him, okay, first we give him, okay, take this ball. He will say, he will look at you, what is this? Then we teach him, okay, throw this ball. So now, and then the next time we will tell him, okay, throw the ball, and then his metacognitive ability will be started over there. And then he will throw you back. And then the speaking ability, when a child speaks, you talk with him since he is born, okay, how are you baby, how are this and all of that one with this small baby. And then after like about 1 year, 8 months, 2 years, he starts speaking some little words. And then starting with the third year he start making small sentences, and then the fourth year or the third year he might speaking up the things into a fluent way, and he is now coming up with on his words, and he can make up the phrases. This is now the metacognitive ability. How many years you took it up to create that? 4 years? Then how a student in a class can do the same thing onto a certain program or a certain discipline that he don't know about it before, and he can create it all of a sudden in first course? Just think about it. So we have to hold our student hands, and we have to make them take these steps onto the Bloom's itself. And when we make them take these steps, they will go step by step, and then at the end they will reach up the certain level. So now think about it, revisit the teaching style, revisit the program learning objective, revisit your institutional objective, revisit your departmental objectives, revisit your course objective, and then at the end you will reach up to the assessment level itself. And then revisit them also and make up the matrix. That's very important. Now this is very important when you are taking the Bloom's itself. So this is an exercise for you. So like you can use up this one, and then you can map it up X over here. This is my first course. I will start with remembering, and remembering is like including identification, recognizing, describing, outline, matching, define, understanding, and then I will move on to this course also the conceptual one. Similarly at institution level, from which starting level I will reach up to which one? Am I going to develop at the end their metacognitive ability? Because it's not an easy. We just say that okay, create something, but create from where? Invent something. Can a student into the first course can do that? No. So how you can have all of a sudden a certain course with that objective, or a certain assessment asking the student on to the level 1 also the same? So we have to start that progressive, and then we need to include and make this matrix when we are talking about our institutional objectives, when we are talking about our class learning outcomes, when we are talking about your course learning outcome, when you are talking about program learning outcomes. We have to make this. This is very important. So if we have missing this, then our next mapping is not right at all. So the mapping with the PLO and CLO will be just without any concept and not using Bloom's knowledge dimension. It's just like taking up the words from each of one of them and doing it. So this is I wanted to convey to you. So this will be available on my newsletter onto the LinkedIn. So you can even search it by name onto the LinkedIn itself. I will post this video over there into the article. I hope so you will like this video. And in case of any questions, anything, you can still come back to me, and I will definitely help you out. So this is the second video in this series, and I'm inshallah going to make up some more onto this series to have work on this concept, because as an instructor we need to learn, and we should be open to new learning, and we should be able to implement the things that are very important. So of course that it is going to take time. So if you make up these institutional objectives and if you don't know them, we will also go later on to that stage. I will try my best to help you creating the right program learning objectives, creating the right class learning objectives or course learning objectives, so or to the assessment level objectives. So later on we will do that, but without this one, from like basic of the foundation, then moving into the dimensions, and then we will move also into the further domains of this one. So unless we understand it fully, we cannot do that. So thank you very much for your time for now, and I welcome your every feedback. Thank you very much.